Hello, everyone. Kevin Shepherd here. I want to talk to you guys about the book of Job. I think the book of Job is one of those books that you hear in church when you're growing up, and you try not to think about it too much because it leaves kind of a scary or a bad taste in your mouth. In that, we have this like conflict that exists internally if we've ever, gone to church or been exposed to Christianity, especially if our families were deeply religious. We kind of judge ourselves a lot for trying to live like the world does and trying to, want the things everybody else wants. And, you know, we idolize all these, movie stars and basketball players and musicians and pop singers and this whole culture of like sex, drugs and pop music for lack of a better description. It used to be rock and roll, but now it's like pop music and some other shit that I don't even I even can't even label the shit. But let's not get stuck on that. Basically, Job just kind of deters us from not from the lifestyle, but more it just kind of deters us from the faith in a way. It makes us we don't really agree with it, and I think that's what Job was going through when God questioned him, or when he was responding to God, and when his faith was really tested, and he kind of told God that he would have rather not been born. And that he would hopes nobody remembers him. Like he was really down, and he couldn't understand why he had been given life, and he had been given all these things, and he had been obedient, and then all of a sudden all this pain and suffering is come upon him, and it just didn't seem fair. And to me, when I read it or heard it the first time, it didn't seem fair to me either, and it kind of like made me question God in a way, a little bit the same way Job did, because I don't think it really resonates with our hearts as humans. We have this moral compass that's ingrained inside of us, and we have this love and this idea of what's wrong and right, and we're just born with it. Even people that do bad things, they're born with it too. It just they suppress it and they block it and they shield it to where they do so many fucked up things that eventually they just they don't feel they no longer feel like they are they feel like they're, I guess, a lost cause at that point. Like they've already they're already going to hell. They don't really fear doing wrong anymore. They don't associate with ever being righteous, and they kind of choose the dark side, and it grips them and controls them. And there's some deeper powers and I guess influences that kind of facilitate that type of situation in a person. But I'm not going to get into that. I'll get off topic on any one of these things, so I'm trying to just get back to Job. And so he was questioning God, and him and God were essentially going back and forth, and God was explaining to Job all these magnificent things he can do, and how should Job know what's right and what's wrong, and what should be and what shouldn't, and all these things. And God was like a little bit bothered that Job was had the nerve to question him. And to me, even that seemed, a little bit, it lacked a lot of empathy. Obviously, I feel like if this loving father, was watching their child suffering and they had been obedient and they didn't really deserve all these things, then, there would definitely be this mercy that, would eventually come to pass, and it did. It just seemed a little harsh the way it was written. Job was rewarded two times full and all these things, and God punished the other messenger, which I believe. I mean, if you read it, it says some deeper things I'm not going to get into because most people don't really get that deep on things, and they don't really recognize certain realities of the past as they can't comprehend them as being possible because they've never really heard them before. But if you study ancient history and ancient religions, and then you can kind of look around today and see that there's some other things that are going on that would probably blow your mind. All right, but back to Job. So when Job first becomes afflicted with, I think pretty much all of his all the things that happened to him. Like first it was his possessions being taken, and then eventually it comes down to his skin being affected, where he has all these diseases and like probably leprosy or something. It just seemed like excruciating and painful. But at that point, he said, and this is the part that really is getting to my point, he said that you brought all of my fears upon me. And then I it said something after that was also notable to me, but that part where it said you brought all of my fears against me. So that's the part that made me understand what Job was really about. And it's about that when you fear, you the problem with fear is its lack of faith. Faith is not just recognition of God and his power and all these things. Faith is believing that God will take care of you. It's believing that he will give you everything you need. And Jesus preached that extensively. It's all throughout the Bible, and it's like the biggest message behind everything. Like you have faith, and people don't understand faith. They think of it as hope and like hope that God's going to save them and all these things. But if you hope that God's going to do anything for you, he can't, because you don't believe that he will. And that's where faith and fear are complete opposites. Fear is just, confusion and indecisiveness. It's, anxiety. It's worry. It's guilt. It's all these things that are very unsure. Faith is not. Faith is solid. It's 100%. And if you can get yourself to actually 100% with all your being believe anything, then it will manifest into existence. And I've tested this. It goes back to, all these pioneers of all these great arts and sciences and all these things. All these people had faith. They believed things, and that's how they were able to do great things. And then they wrote about faith, and they wrote about the power of positive thinking and the power of belief. And this is nothing new. We don't take it so seriously because we can't take anything serious until we've seen it manifest in our lives. Until we actually see it, we cannot believe it. So you have to at least try it to understand how true it is. And it's important, and that's how you never end up like Job. Like you could have good things, but you as long as you're not placing so much value on them, and you're actually realizing that they're not that important, like you can't pass on into the afterlife without them, then you can deal with parting with them if you had to. And when you were able to like pretty much go through your life and navigate it however it happens, you don't have to worry about it. If you lose everything, you lose everything. You're going to be all right. Well, that's like a form of faith. Like it's a lack of fear, which translates into faith, and that's a foundation you can start to build on. It's not that God doesn't want you to have nice things. It's just that when people have nice things, it goes to their head, and then they're separating from their spiritual side. The spirit is completely forgotten, and everything is 100% material. There's no spirit. There's no God. Like, I mean, that's where we're at as a society, and that's why we suck. I mean, that's why we can't we couldn't survive a week in the wilderness if we had to. Like we're completely dependent on material things, and we are afraid of everything, and that's why that I feel like that's the purpose of the book of Job. It was saying like you can be good, you can do this, you can do that, you can do whatever you want, but you could still be affected if you fear. So you have to have faith. And that's what the book of Job was really about. It wasn't about telling you that you're gonna burn in hell if you sidestep the slightest bit. Like we're all gonna make mistakes. We're prone to it. That's what we are. But the closer to God we become, the more faith we're gonna have, the more sure we're gonna be. And being close to God is being more spiritual, and that's what it is. And because your spirit came from God, so if you become more spiritual, then you're closer to God. It's not rocket science. All right.